Hi, I'm Mindy. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm doing my July wrap-up. Tell you about the 11 books that I read in July. I'm going to start with book club picks and then I will finish up with the books I read for readathons because I participated in Jane Austen July and Christmas Evil in July. So first, actually, I'm going to tell you about a arc that I read for review, and that was They Lurk by Ronald Malfi. And I have a review of this already, but I will say this had 5 novellas, and the first 2 were okay, good. The next 2 were really good, and the last story was 5 stars. And the average score for all of the novellas was 4 stars. So that's what I gave it. Okay, I actually have one more book that isn't a group book club book or anything else, and that is The Perfect Marriage by Jeneva Rose. This was a little bit of mood reading in the beginning of the month. So I went on vacation to go see my sister-in-law and her family in Montana, and I brought her a stack of thriller books that I love, and she gave me this one, and I decided to just stop everything and read this right away. And it was a fast read. It really kept me turning the pages, and it did surprise me. So what else can you ask for from a thriller, right? So The Perfect Marriage, you can see it's crossed off. It was anything but perfect. It's about a couple who the wife is a big time attorney and the husband is a writer, and the husband is having an affair, and the woman that he's having an affair with ends up dead, and he is the main suspect for the murder. And to make things even more interesting, his wife is the one who's defending him in court. It's kind of going through the whole case. And it's an exciting one. Next, I have 2 books that I finished in July for the Stephen King read-along hosted by Fiber Artsy, because I finished the June book the very beginning of July, kind of went into the next month. So that book was Hearts in Atlantis by Stephen King, and this was another book of novellas, I think. So it had 4 different stories, and they all had something to do with the Vietnam War and the effects of that in the US. And it was a pretty, I don't know, I didn't hate it. It was just kind of a okay, average type read. It's not in the top tier of Stephen King books, for sure. And then the July book was The Girl Who Loved Tom Gordon. And this was a short one. Gotta love it. Short Stephen King book. It's not scary. Neither was Hearts in Atlantis, but this is kind of a survival story about a girl who gets lost in the woods and has to survive for days lost. And her mind plays tricks on her, that sort of thing. Can you imagine being a young girl in the woods at night all by yourself in the dark? Like, super creepy, but not necessarily scary to read about. I love survival stories, and this was a good one. I liked it. And the next group read book I read was Queen of Teeth by Hailey Piper, and this was for Katrina Brown's Reaper Book Club. And Queen of Teeth is a super short novella, and it's a weird one. It's about a woman who finds a set of teeth down there. And it just gets weirder from there, if you can believe it. Her body's going through a lot of transformations. And I don't want to tell you too much because it's short, and the weirdness is best if it's a surprise. It's a bit cosmic horror, maybe? Body horror for sure. I believe that's actually my favorite book of the month. Nope, I lied. I have one that's even more favorite than Queen of Teeth, because I haven't even talked about Christmas Evil in July yet. But first, I'm going to tell you about the books that I read for Jane Austen July, and I will have the hosts of Jane Austen July linked down below as well. All of those channels you can check out, and they're doing great things. So, I read 2 books for Jane Austen July. First, I read Northanger Abbey, which was the read-along book for the readathon. And it also fit the prompt to read one of Jane Austen's 6 main novels. I really like Northanger Abbey. The main character is a book lover, and it has a lot of talk of Gothic novels. And it has a little bit of satire about Gothic novels in there as well. And I just really liked it. I really like the main character. I super like the love interest. He's my favorite love interest from any of the books I've read from Jane Austen so far. The first encounter between them, I thought, I was just like, oh yes, yeah, I like this guy. It was the banter. Good banter. There were characters to love, and there were characters to hate as well. And then I also read Lady Susan by Jane Austen. Oh, yeah, I should just show you my book. I had both of these books in this binder. And Lady Susan was for the prompt to read something else by Jane Austen that is not one of her 6 main novels. This was a novel, I think. It's epistolary, told all in letters from different people. So that makes it a lot different than anything I've read from Jane Austen so far. And this one was unique because Lady Susan, the main character, is kind of a very interesting character. She's kind of the antagonist of the story, and it's like her story. So that's a really interesting twist on Jane Austen novels. Yeah, I kind of like that one too. It wasn't as good as her other novels, but, and I think that's probably because of the format with the letters. But I thought it told the story, told a pretty good story, and Lady Susan was quite a schemer. Love it. And now I can tell you about what I read Christmas Eve in July. And there were a lot of great hosts for Christmas Eve in July. I'll have them all linked down below. And I read 4 books during the last couple weeks of July for this readathon. It was a lot of fun with great sprints going on all the time and watch parties. I watched Jaws and Heavyweights as watch parties, so I'm glad I got to fit a couple of those in. And I read 4 books that I made fit all the prompts. And the first book I read for that was my favorite book of the month, which is Swan Song by Robert R. McCammon. I started this a long time ago, and then I finally got to finish it this month, and the ending was just as good as the beginning. Yes, this is now a new favorite of mine. This is a epic, apocalyptic novel. After a nuclear war disaster in the United States, about people, a group of people that survive the blast and what they do afterwards. I also read The Hollow by Andy Davidson, which is a folklore story taking place in the summer. It has dual timelines, one in the early 1900s and one in present day. And it takes place on this farm. And this farm has a history going back generations. When a woman inherits this farm, she's determined to make it into her home, and then she finds out she has a lot to deal with when she starts figuring out this past history. This was really pretty creepy. It had really good horror scenes and pretty surprising ones I wasn't expecting. And it was really, really good. But I listened to it as an audiobook, and I don't know if I was having a hard time paying enough attention. I found myself having to rewind it several times, going back several times to re-listen to the same part over and over until I got it. So I don't know why that was, because usually I can listen to audiobooks just fine. So maybe, I don't know what it was about it, but it was a really good story. I also read The Haunting of Alejandra by V. Castro. And this is also a book club pick for the Creepy Book Club hosted by Nightmare Maven. We just had the live show. And yeah, I love this book as well. This is a take on the La Llorona story. And it's a story that is about generational trauma, and it has an amazing character arc for Alejandra. Just so much character growth throughout this story. And it's about a family who is cursed. And I won't say anything more than that. It's a good one. The last book I read for Christmas Evil in July, and the last book that I read in July was Dark Corners by Megan Goldin. I finished this on the last day of July. This was a much anticipated read. This is the second book in the Rachel Kroll series. I have a full review of this. This book takes place right after the events of the Night Swim, and this series features Rachel Kroll, who is a podcaster of a true crime podcast. And in this one, she's investigating the disappearance of an influencer. And this one was really good, and I love Megan Goldin's books, especially this series. If you want to hear more, you can watch my review. It'll be linked down below. That one is 5 stars for sure. Man, I had a lot of good books today. This month I had Queen of Teeth was 5 stars. Swan Song was 5 stars. The Haunting of Alejandra was 5 stars, and so was Dark Corners. So that is really good. Really good reading month. That is everything that I read in July. I'd love to know what you thought of any of these books. I will be back very soon with another book-related video. Thanks. Bye.